Welcome to another episode of the Modern Practical Guide to a Positive Full Life, aka the Selfish Guide. With me, your host, um, your go-to friend. Today is a special episode. We have a special guest, Andrea, with us, and she's going to be going over concerns, questions, follow-up to the core #1 video. Um, please welcome Andrea. I'm going to give her a second to introduce herself. Andrea?
Hey, Carlos, what's up? It's great to be here with you. Thank you for having me on the show. Just a brief bit about me. Well, I'm here in France. I'm here in Paris. I'm doing a master's in economics. I'm very motivated by questions in the economic development sphere, things, policies, and innovations that can target poverty reduction, and particularly poverty reduction via education. So what role can education play in development? So that's basically me and my questions in a nutshell.
Great, great.
Um, yeah.
Thank you for being here. I always say the biggest gift you can give someone is your time, and so I greatly appreciate you coming here and giving me your time. So thank you for that. So without further ado, would you mind reading your first question for me?
Yeah, sure. So I saw the video. So I saw the core, I believe, which was the first video. So my first question is really focusing on who we are, which it was a question like identity and what we are comprised of is something you really touch on in the first video. So it's really a question of who of these, which of these two things are we really? Are we our own base natural instincts that may or may not be the best instincts? Or are we the person we strive to be every day, who wakes up every morning and battles against our inner demons and pushes the bad thoughts in the back of our mind? So which of those two people are we?
I think it's a great question. I think that we all struggle with the question, who are we really? And are we just our basic instincts? Or are we, what we grew up with culturally, socially, and all the things in reference to nurture as a human being? My answer to that would be we're both. Um, we are our basic instincts, and sometimes those are very good, and there's certain aspects that are not so good in reference to what we want to get done in a day. In reference to our nurture, sometimes there's really good aspects to how we were raised, and there's also really not so good aspects of how we were raised. The main thing in the video is that it doesn't matter. I mean, the biggest point is, Andrea or Carlos, we are not one individual bad action, no matter how bad it is. We're not one individual good action, no matter how good it is. We are, as a whole, I'm Carlos. As a whole, you're Andrea. And I think that no matter what it is there, you can't say Andrea is good or bad. You can't say Carlos is good or bad. Same thing, you can't say like your natural instincts are all good or all bad. And same thing with how you were raised. It's not all good and it's all bad. But the most important thing is to accept, who that is, and then just, one, believe you that you deserve love, and then loving yourself. And it's really, really powerful, because it means that no matter how bad the past was or how bad the future could potentially be, that you love yourself. You love yourself unconditionally. And that's why I made a video about unconditional love as well, because it's something I think it's harder to find. But when you love something unconditionally, ideally yourself first, then it doesn't matter what you've done. And some people really struggle with that, because they're like, I really, really did a horrible thing. And I would always say that no matter how bad the decision is, you probably, in that instance, thought it was the best thing for that moment. If you go back, assuming you don't know the future, you're going to do it exactly the same every single time. So it's really not very useful to beat yourself up about it. I would say if you mess up, learn from it and take the good stuff, and the bad stuff, come to grips in reference to, is it worth even fixing? Sometimes you really are bad at XYZ, but you're like, I'm going to invest 20 times more energy and I'm not going to get that much better. So it's not holding me back. I'm just going to try to avoid that as much as possible. Other times you're like, I need to get a little better because it's holding me back. Once I get over where it's not holding me down anymore, then I'm just going to stop focusing on it. But it's little things like that that lets you get into what you really want to do, because you're not looking at it as like, this is a horrible thing. You're not running away from it. You're not scared of it. You're just looking at it from a very practical sense. Like, okay, I do this. It's not something I want to do. It's bad. I regret doing it. What can I do to get over it? And sometimes there's an emotional aspect there. And what I say to that is, I think one of your questions touches on that, so I won't touch too much, but you just embrace it and then learn from it and let it go. Um, and whatever that means to you, I know that sounds really simple, but that's going to be different for each individual, because each individual is going to develop their own system of how they process failure and emotions and be able to overcome it and move forward. So to answer your question, ultimately it's about accepting whatever and whoever you are inside and being completely okay with it, not wanting to change a single thing. I think the problem is in our life, work the nature part is constantly saying you're not worthy. It's constantly saying you didn't, do this enough. You need to buy this thing. When you get that degree, you'll be good enough. When you get that job, you'll be good enough. When you get that promotion, you'll be good enough. When you reach this age, you'll be good enough. And to that I say it's a bunch of baloney. You're good enough right now. You just need to choose to believe that in your mind. And there's really no way around that. And so I would say that it's not one or the other, it's both. And that you just need to choose to accept and acknowledge all those aspects without being judging onto yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Like the one, like I guess point of clarification I would just add is like external things I think might be more manageable, at least in my experience, than recognizing certain patterns in thought and
Mm.
self-belief. I think it's a little bit harder to overcome when it's actually, you know what I mean, like a conceptual framework in your mind.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. But I think that it sounds like you personally deal with it this way, which is nothing wrong. There's a lot of people who struggle with that, but I would also say there's a lot of people who have the opposite problem that you have. The one thing I will say to that though is whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, what you have, it's again, it's about this worthy thing. It's okay. It's completely acceptable. You don't need anyone's validation. Whatever you feel, no matter how bad it might be or horrible it might be, assuming you don't act on it, like there's always validation for feeling it. You feel that way, and you don't need anyone or anything to validate it. It is completely valid to just the very act of feeling it means it is valid, right? I think a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm overreacting. I shouldn't feel angry, calm myself down. I'm like, no, that's not a good way to process an emotion. Whether you feel angry, mad, uh, you know, whatever it is, even if it's infatuation, like you're feeling that for a reason. It's very good to be, in your mindset to be like, okay, stop. This is not going to go well. I've done it in the past. I should try to get off course and try to
Yeah.
do something new. But that feeling, you are always 100% valid in feeling whatever you're feeling. You don't need any justification from anything, even yourself. Like, it is just okay to feel whatever you're feeling. So I would just say that in reference to that follow up. But again, nobody knows Andrea better than Andrea. So what I might be saying, you might be like, well, that's not that relevant. But it just depends on the individual, I think, more than anything else. Did you have any other follow up question? Or does that make sense?
No, no, no. That makes sense. That makes sense. No, I think that's a good response if we are trying to leave out the deep lecture on moral philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, the way I feel like, assuming you're not doing something, like I said, if you feel vengeance, process it, deal with it. Don't act on it, because the very act of hurting someone else to hurt someone, I would say is where I draw the line. Now, if I say, hey, the most important thing to me, and I always believe, and that's why I call it the selfish guide as well, because I believe in the airline, slogan, you help yourself, put on your mask before you help others. And I think
Yeah,
it
yeah,
goes the same thing with love. If you don't love yourself unconditionally, it's going to be almost impossible for you to love others to that degree. And I think that this goes hand in hand with that, in reference to, if you're not doing it for you and validating it, then when you go forward, for example, because I'm getting a little too fluffy. If I say, hey, I need, whenever I'm with X person, I I resort to very bad behavior because they do these behaviors. I don't think I should judge the person saying you're a bad person. What I'm doing here is I'm being selfish and I'm saying, hey, that person maybe is happier with me, is a better person with me. But the thing is, I don't like who I become around that person. And I can bring it up to that person, but hey, can we change, what we're doing when we're in this environment because it leads to very bad decisions on my part. If they say no, I don't care about you, then I have to step back and be like, okay, I still care about you. I might still love you even, but I'm gonna be over here. When you're ready, I'm here for you. But that's what we do. We need to say, hey, that's a decision that maybe maybe it's something even like drinking, and that person without you does horrible, horrible things because they're drunk. Honestly, that's not on me. That person doesn't control their liquor. I love and I care about them and I can have a million conversations about it. But if they don't choose to listen, it's like the horse, you can't make it drink. And so I would say I'm not judging that person. I'm not saying they're good or bad. I'm just saying that action that they do is not something I want to be a part of, and it affects me negatively.
Yeah.
And so I step away. It's that simple. Um, so I think you can avoid the moral dilemma usually by just doing it. This is not about me hurting somebody. It's about
Mhm.
what I need to take care of myself. And if that has negative side effects, that's not the primary reason or its intention, right? The problem is when your intention is I want to get back to so and so and I want to hurt them. That I would say no.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good summary. Like, I think introspection is important, and identifying whether it's self-care, which should be priority over hurting others, is really a good distinction to be made. It certainly takes a lot of mental exercise.
Yes.
Should be a good practice nonetheless. But I think I get the space you're trying to open up here, which is the space that for many people doesn't exist in their lives, which is like, where am I? Where is taking care of me?
And I really think it comes down to reflection. I think a lot of times the world's happening to us and we see it 24 hours and we want to fill every single hour. And the thing is, it doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. If you don't take time to plan something, it's like saying, hey, I want to build a table. And then you start building and you're like, oh, I'm missing this piece of wood. I'm missing the drill. I'm missing this tool. It doesn't work. You should sit down and be like, I want to build a table. What do I want it to look like? Set the blueprints, get all your tools ready, get everything charged, and then start building. You're still going to have moments where you have to go and come back, but that's going to, I think it's a better way to doing something. And that might involve, instead of doing 100 things today, you're going to do 20. But you're going to feel so much better about those 20 things. You're going to feel like they have purpose, they have meaning, and then you're going to feel good with the outcome because you chose it and you just feel confident. And the more you do that, the more confident you're going to be in your decision, and that's going to make a big difference in your life. Um, but I think we're saying the same thing. I think that
Yeah.
it's just it's slightly a little different, and I hope that that helps to clarify that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks. After the discussion about, whether we are, whether we're just like, our regular nature, or the person we strive to be, this kind of also ties into um, how we come to terms with what I'll just call dark nature, but I think I mentioned it before. I just mean our base instincts, which they can be a bit selfish, or we can call them many names, but we'll just say the darker part of ourselves, and I think it's important to come to terms with these parts of ourselves, because I'm not sure how otherwise you can accept and love yourself unless you're fully aware of all of the parts of yourself, and even those parts of yourself that you somehow feel could be improved, or that you're not very happy about for whatever reason.
No, I
So
think that's a very, very legitimate concern a lot of people have. They say, well, I have these bad thoughts. I shouldn't feel angry. I shouldn't feel vengeful. And again, what I would say to that is no matter what you're feeling is completely valid. You don't need validation. Like you don't need to be validated by anything outside of yourself. And even then you don't need it. If you're feeling it, that should be a very clear indication that you are valid in feeling that emotion. When it comes to bad, I know it's very touchy, like we talked about in the past with
mm,
moral dilemmas. But what I would say is, as a guide, this is a guide to get you started. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it's the best thing for me? Or am I doing it because I'm greedy, or I'm doing it because I want to get back at somebody, or all these different things you can do. Um, I think that you can lie to yourself and say, I'm doing this because it's what's good for me. But in reality, you just want more money, or you just want more power, you just want whatever it might be. I think we naturally, as human beings, we're tribal. I think that there's a lot of really good instincts that are used incorrectly in today's society, but we're empathic. We care about other individuals, and we're social beings. And I think if we use them correctly, you're gonna not really struggle with making that decision, because you're gonna say, hey, I feel angry, right? Because that person hurt me. And I feel that way because I don't know, I've given them so much and then they treat me like this. And I give them so much because I really care about them. I really, really, care about them. And
Mhm,
to care about someone and then have this reaction that's negative would have me react negatively.
mhm,
But ultimately, if you keep asking why you're having these negative emotions, I would say I've never had an instance where I have a negative emotion and in the process of asking why, how, where does it stem from, I don't get to something positive. Even when I'm angry with someone for doing something, it's because I care about them. It's because I put so much thought in that action that I gave them, that the act that they don't appreciate or they treat me poorly angers me or upsets me. And I would say, but once I break it down, you're like, I'm only angry because it hurt. It really hurt, and I'm
yeah,
just using anger as this shield, because it's acceptable to be angry because someone just really did wrong by me. But
yeah,
I think the more honest and true thing inside is they really hurt me, and it's going to be really hard for me to maybe love the same way or see them in the same light. And I felt like I held them on so much higher ground or whatever it might be. But then that really helps you to then be like, is this something I want to invest time to repair? And then understand that, again, in life you can only change yourself, right? So I'm going to try to change and then go back and try to see if I can repair that relationship. But if it doesn't work, I tried and I'm happy with that, and it sucks, but then it's over. And again, I can't get angry about that, because again, if you think about it, I'm sad because then now I'm not going to have be able to have a connection with that person. And I think it goes for everything. It really depends on the person in reference to that first initial process. How am I going to deal with this emotion? I always say the best way to think about it mentally is you got to hug it. You hug it so hard that you just crush it. You just dissolve it. It just completely
when you say
dissipates
hug
into
it,
nothing. What?
what you mean when you say hug it, you mean hug what exactly?
I would say the motion, initial motion is, I think a lot of times we tell people, hide your emotions. Emotions are bad. I think that I know why they say it, because emotions make you make bad decisions. But I would say that before you make the decision, process the emotion, hug it to death. And what that means is sometimes you just feel so angry, you gotta punch something. You have to go for a run. And whatever works for you, just completely go outside, scream, punch, a pillow, do whatever you need to do to just get it out, and then start thinking about it. I think some people say, okay, I'm going to think about it and try to process it and try to see why I feel it, but they're so angry they can't even think straight. And I'm like, you need to process it, you need to hug it, and then after, start to understand it. And then once you understand it, you can just let it go, learn from it. If there's something to be learned, sometimes there isn't, though. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're just like, when I get in this situation, I get angry, and that's empowering, because then you're going to try to either say it doesn't matter or try to avoid the situation. So I would say
Yeah,
we all have a dark side inside of us. And I think it's ridiculous to try to say that it's wrong or it's bad. It's who you are. It's a part of you. I think you just need to find a healthy system to address it and process it. And at the
yeah,
same time, with the motivation of doing what's best for you.